The parable that you've just heard follows the parable we heard last week in the Bible of the persistent widow and the unjust judge. They're the first two in that chapter. Remember, the persistent widow, in her insistence, receives justice. The gospel then tells this story, and then more follow in this chapter, so that this chapter then includes unjust judges, proud religious leaders, little children running around or held by a parent called out as the way to knowing God, and then quickly a faithful, striving, successful young adult told to sell everything and follow Jesus, and then to the disciples who have left everything and followed Jesus, Jesus says, "You will follow me to the cross." It's parable whiplash in this chapter. As soon as you think you might have a hint about the way, you have to reorient yourself again to a slightly different path, an other turn. Almost every kind of person you could be is in this chapter. And the reward for following is in the middle of the chapter, is trial. What might seem to most of us like trials too great to endure. Jesus will die soon in Luke, and he tells them that if they follow him, they too will receive this reward. But this section begins in this way. He also told this parable to some who trusted in themselves that they were righteous and regarded others with contempt. These few verses are for the self-righteous, the self-justifying, for the ones who by nature will see the speck in another's eye, the fault at a distance, the critic at large, one of my clergy friends used to say about himself, for the reformers on this Reformation Sunday, for the justice makers. This is a message for all of us who have ever looked critically or with judgment on someone else. Jesus speaks to us today. For you who only have curiosity for others or only love for the outsider, who have never offered a cynical or sarcastic review of your neighbor or coworker or fellow line stander, right? Please feel free to play on your phone for the next 10 to 15 minutes. We are told something very true about the nature of the world in Luke 18 and our nature, if not so directly about the nature of God. This chapter ends with the unseeing man who calls out for mercy from Jesus the healer and receives his sight. The simple, needy one is the one who sees Jesus and what Jesus is for mercy. It is a chapter of flipping over. It is the persistent widow who gets what she wants, not the corrupt, powerful judge waiting for his bribe. The tax collector in our story is the heartbroken, faithful one. The religious one is proud and has lost his way. The one who does everything right must give everything away, it says. The one who gives everything away will suffer, it says. The one who appears unseeing is the one who sees. In this flipping over of the world of Luke 18, it seems clear that it matters a lot who you choose to be. Your life is not only what the world imposes upon you, not only what happens to you, what you were told you should be or must be, what trauma has done to you. It matters a lot in God's economy who you choose to be, how you act in the places where you have decisions to make, how you understand yourself in relationship to God and God's creation, how you use the power that is yours, how we develop the heart that is ours. It is a significant part of our work together. My guess is that it develops something like the samud that we heard from the Archbishop last week. The Arabic word for resilience is what he said, also translated as steadfastness, like the steadfast love of the Lord which endures forever. I want that. One of the candidates for mayor of New York City, and note, early voting is open in New York City, so please go to your polling place early if you can, and make sure that your neighbors vote. We don't endorse candidates here, but early voting is open. One of the candidates for mayor, Zoran Mamdani, posted a video on social media. One of the candidates for mayor, Zoran Mamdani posted a video on social media yesterday that powerfully illustrates the reading we have today. And again, we don't endorse candidates, but we do speak out against hate speech here. And in this election, the other candidates and our sitting mayor, who is no longer running, have attacked Mr. Mamdani for his religion, attacked him as a Muslim, equating that faith practice and identity and his South Asian culture and identity as threatening and laughable by literally attacking things as specific as how he eats. And like any good Indian, in my opinion, with the utensils God has given us, and equating Islam with terrorism. It is outrageous and may be instructive for all of us to see what many Muslim New Yorkers know from their own experience, that this city is not always safe for them. They will be thrown under the bus for political gain by the most powerful people in this city and possibly their neighbors. It is outrageous. As Mamdani says, of course they are not the only ones, but it is happening to them now. We are part of the ecosystem, requiring others to respond with samud, to survive, resilience. Our responsibility in times like this is solidarity, a standing with those rejected for their faith or identity, a deep solidarity. Here are the stats. 9% of New Yorkers are Muslim. That's roughly 750,000 of our neighbors. 12% of New Yorkers are Jewish, making this the largest Jewish city outside of Israel, about 1.4 million. 23% are Black, 14% AAPI, Asian American Pacific Islander, 15% Native American, maybe the most invisible group in this city. Many must be descendants of the first people of this place. 28% Latinx or Latine, 30% identify as white, non-Hispanic. And of course, these categories overlap and internally are also quite diverse. In this wonderful diversity of our city, a city marked by diversity from the very beginning of the colonial era, and that's not true everywhere. A diversity memorialized in the chapels of the tongues in this great cathedral, celebrating the heritage of some of the first immigrants. To target an entire group by laughing at jokes equating one religion and violence, when every one of our religions has plenty of shameful violence in our histories. And white nationalist violence, to be very clear, right, is by every measure the most urgent concern of the day. For people seeking elected office to give New Yorkers permission to think the worst of their neighbors is inexcusable, especially in these times. Now, I know I don't have to convince you of this, but I do need to set the stage for this video that I hope you'll go watch, that Mamdani posted on social media, making his case for mayor. He says he speaks to Muslim New Yorkers and tells a story of an elderly Muslim uncle telling him, when he was first running for the state assembly, that he did not have to tell anyone he was Muslim. It was a kindly elder telling a striving young person to protect himself and his chances, because this city is unfair to Muslims. Now, there are many ways to take on an idea like that. I remember an older gay male priest telling me when I was first pursuing ordination as a 22-year-old in Los Angeles to go out and live my life and come back when that was done. He said maybe in your 50s to serve the church. He had been closeted for far too long. That was his generation. He had been closeted to serve God in the church, and it had hurt him. The world was so cruel, and he didn't recommend it, is what he was saying to me. My response was to not be closeted, but unimaginable in his time. And Mamdani said a similar thing in this video, but much more beautifully. He said that many Muslim New Yorkers are forced to live in the shadows of our city, hoping to escape harm, hoping that the rest of us will be a friend or kind. He named the unexpected violence that can come from neighbors, but also from our government, and concluded by saying he would stand in the light. Maybe a nod to his Indian siblings in this time of Diwali, definitely a reference Christians and Jews know in this season of light coming for so many of our faith traditions. And he invited his listeners to do the same, to not take the scraps, to not keep your head down, to pretend you eat or pray in a way more acceptable to the mayor, but to stand in the light as you are, like that tax collector, weeping to his God of his great unworthiness in the light of the glory God intends for him. Who knows what broke his heart that day? Was he weeping in gratitude for the blessing of a child? Had a person he collected taxes from been terrified of him? Was his family ashamed of how he made sure they were all fed? Did he take a final coin from a poor widow? Weeping before his God, inching towards the light, unlike the proud teacher who loves his visibility and performs his prayer as a spectacle. He has chosen a good way, no doubt, serving the people, in some ways like a mayor or a governor or a priest or a bishop or a dean. His self-righteousness a danger for every one of us, always, and for Jesus' listeners, because there were many great Pharisees, and Jesus was a Pharisee, remember? Jesus messes with us, where you think you are on the inside, when you forget your personal power to harm, when arrogance creeps in, we must watch for it, every single one of us, especially in these times when the world is precarious. Let us not mirror the arrogance and cruelty of the world around us in our own lives. Let us remember we stand before a God whose vision for this world, made in the glorious diversity of God's imagination, is our work to reveal in our time. Friends, at the end of this week, SNAP benefits expire. I was once in a conversation with the great Marian Wright Edelman, founder of the Children's Defense Fund, after she had just gotten off a call in D.C. about the budget, a bipartisan project, the federal budget, and all of the backroom trading that happens in D.C. landing in a final bill. What would we give for that today? Mrs. Edelman had been in a conversation where she was asked directly what she wanted to see in the budget, if they had these few choices that they presented to her, and she said, the farm bill, the one that also guarantees SNAP. We support farmers, we feed the hungry. The idea for the first food stamp program, called FSP, was the brainchild of the Secretary of Agriculture, Henry Wallace, during the Depression, late 1930s, and the program's first administrator was named Milo Perkins. The first recipient was Mabel McFiggin of Rochester, New York, on May 16, 1939. Depression times, who knows how long she had been hungry. Milo Perkins said he visualized the program as a huge chasm, with farm surplus on one side and impoverished city dwellers on the other. It's now called Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, and it serves rural, suburban, and urban people all over our country who are food unstable, which simply means they can't juggle their income and rent and medicine and food. That simple. Many Americans have used this resource to get through a tough period, a bridge that prevents utter devastation for their families. In 2024, Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, SNAP, served an average of 41.7 million people a month. 12% of Americans required it at some point in 2024. 3 million New Yorkers, 1.7 million in New York City. As of November 1, unfunded. The House is not meeting this week, so it's not clear that there is any way for this to be avoided. The administration has said it will not use the $6 billion reserve established for exactly this kind of time to bridge the funding. Our city and state governments must step in this week to prevent catastrophe, but also at their own great risk. We acknowledge that. We know people have been stocking up from food pantries, including ours. We know a lot of people are praying for a miracle, and it would be a miracle. At a convening on this topic that we did once at Trinity Church, a woman who ran a SNAP office in Brooklyn said that by the time people come in to apply, they and their families have been hungry for a while and then have to wait for the benefits to be approved. It won't happen in the office. Can you imagine? Or maybe you have been in that office yourself. I identify with that tax collector today, we that have found our ways to make our lives work in the world as it is. May we turn to face God and weep for the world that should be, that could be, for the strength to walk gently on this earth, for the wisdom to interrupt how this world would make us distant from ourselves and from those who suffer at the hands of this world, unnecessary, avoidable suffering. So we will start our campaign here this week to get more resources to Cathedral Community Cares. That's how we know we can help, and I hope you will join us. We'll have more to share this week, and I hope that it doesn't come to this, but if SNAP is not renewed quickly, we have a lot of work to do in the short term to support our neighbors. And I know we're up for it. Our care for one another will mark these times and help to keep us whole. Today's reading ends like this: God, be merciful to me, a sinner, pleads the tax collector. The man walked away justified, Jesus says, for asking for mercy, for acknowledging his sin. We are not asked to be perfect. We are asked to be repentant, to turn, to understand that we rely on mercy, which must be the undergirding of samud, a soft, timeless resilience, a steadfastness like God. Luke 18 ends with the blind man crying out, "Jesus, Son of God, have mercy on me." To which Jesus replies, "What do you want? What do you want?" The unseeing man asks to see. What would you ask for yourself? Mercy is at the very heart of our faith. God loves us in all of creation, not as we deserve or earn, but because we've hidden something, but because we are lavishly loved, seen, forgiven, in the light, to turn and try again, sleeves rolled up, standing in the light, head unbowed, serving one another, and praising God on the way.